Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And here we have the Pioneer Jupiter spacecraft that is on its way out to Jupiter. And yeah, everything is going pretty well so far, but I wanted to kind of update something that I missed. We have, if we look at the contract, a requirement to get within 150,000 kilometers of Jupiter. And that is going to be a little bit tougher than I expected. If you take a look at our trajectory now and the modification that we are going to make, we are way out at 337,000 kilometers. If I were to bring this into under 150,000 kilometers, the trajectory would be basically unusable. It would have our exit of the sphere of influence of Jupiter somewhere around here, and we would, which would increase our radial velocity, I think, because we would be going this way through here, which is obviously not where Saturn is going to be. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to just force complete this contract, because I feel like we've met the spirit of the contract, because we are going to be able to get our flyby and we will be transmitting science from near Jupiter. And I think that is completely worthwhile and totally fine, because I think the getting the science and getting the interesting flyby like images, like actually the view of going past Jupiter, is going to be well worth not actually getting the contract exactly right. I think it's more interesting. I think it's more fun for you guys to do a more interesting mission than it is to very carefully meet the needs of the particular contract. So that is what I think we're going to do, because in just 21 minutes we are going to be doing one of our a few correction burns that I have planned. So let's go ahead and get this one going, and then I can talk about what happens next. All right, so this beautiful thing with no RCS on whatsoever is able to turn the with the reaction wheel and point in the direction that we want to go, which is pretty damn interesting. I have no idea how this works. This is my first time actually using a semi-saturable reaction wheel ever since installing it. So yeah, I'm, you know, what, 60 some episodes into this series, and I've never used a reaction wheel. It's all been RCS. So yeah, it's an interesting idea to use the reaction wheel instead, but that is kind of the plan, is that we want to just reserve as much fuel as possible. All right, so we are adjusting our trajectory just slightly, and there we go. That is all completed. And you see our next burn is not for a very, very long time. So we didn't do much here, but it did just very precisely change our, mostly it changed our normal inclination so that we hit Saturn, our next target, in a different way. So if I go look at Saturn and focus target, you can see that we do indeed have a maneuver here, and then we have a maneuver or a trajectory that goes past Saturn, and once again we are bent off in a direction. We kind of come in right along the prograde vector, or the retrograde vector, and then get flung up and out of the a little bit radial and a little bit inclined. So that is going to change our trajectory a bit. And once again, I think this is going to be too far away, because this is like a whole lot of gigameters away. Yeah, that's 1,158,000 kilometers. So I can't imagine that's going to be within the correct that's going to be the correct altitude for the flyby of Saturn, but I think we're probably going to just take that one as well. And the reason why that is so we hit Jupiter, and then we hit Saturn, and then it's on to Uranus, which we have lost our, I have lost my maneuver on that. Okay, so after playing with that just a whole bunch, I think I finally got our next set of maneuvers. So I'm still just in, like, just outside of Earth's orbit and tweaking with RCS, just a tiny bit of RCS to get a different trajectory altogether. I had this planned out, but obviously what I had planned didn't work. And this trajectory looks like it will do what we needed to do, and also maybe even be low enough to get the flyby contract properly, which would be really nice. But yeah, you can see we come in right along the line of its orbit, and then we just get flung off in just this wild direction off in down here, which gets us from Saturn out to Uranus. Fabulous. And then if we were to continue, we could even perhaps, if we had one more, if we had more patches, more patched conics actions here, we could take a look at this and see what we could do to continue on to hit Neptune. There we go. So yes, indeed, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, so my options here right now are to hit Jupiter at the correct altitude that would give us the contract, or I could do a grand tour of all the outer planets except for Pluto. Because I don't think this is going to come anywhere near Pluto, which is unfortunate, but also fine at this point. Because I would much rather hit the 4 gas giants rather than hit Pluto. And I'll hit Pluto a little bit more deliberately later on, probably. So yeah, that is kind of what we're looking at now. So yeah, you can see what our trajectory is, and it looks a little bit like the trajectory of some of the Voyager missions, or maybe some of the Pioneer 10 or 11 missions. But yeah, we're swinging out here up above Jupiter just because of when we were launching. We're going to hit Jupiter's orbit, and that's going to fling us off to Saturn. And then Saturn is going to do a big fling to throw us up towards Uranus. And then we are going to continue mostly in a straight line, but it's going to alter our trajectory just slightly so that we then move on to hit Neptune. And then we're probably going to continue out of the sphere of influence of the solar system. I'm not sure that that's actually a thing, but that is pretty much it for that. So yeah, that is kind of what I'm thinking for the Pioneer Jupiter. So we now have basically nothing to do until we hit or get close to Uranus, because we are actually on track to hit Jupiter and then Saturn and then Uranus, just with this trajectory that we have right now. So yeah, we are going to wait until we are close to Jupiter, and then we will do that flyby ourselves. And we're going to be in the sphere of influence of Jupiter for over 100 days. It looks like we're going to be in Jupiter's sphere of influence for 1203. Sorry for the laser light show. So we're going to enter at about 1203 days, 1202, and we're leaving at 1348. So yeah, we're going to be there for 4 months, 5 months-ish, which is just, I mean, we're going to get all the science done, that's for darn sure. And then we're on our way out towards Saturn, which is just so exciting. So yeah, there we go. Pioneer Venus on its way, doing all the really hard work out in deep space. And it's on its way right now. There's nothing more to do. It's just going to hit that sphere of influence when we hit it. So let's go ahead and put this on here. Pioneer Jupiter no longer needs the maneuver node. 1,202 days, so a couple years from now, and we will be getting to Jupiter. Let's just make sure before we leave this for several years. Okay, we've got everything we need there, or that's all turned off, I should say. It's all waiting. Power low, turn everything off. Power high, turn everything on, and hopefully, this is a fluke. Oh wait, no, it's the avionics. Once again, just turning that off so that I can see what the power looks like for myself. And yeah, we have plenty of power with no avionics to worry about. We will be able to conduct our mission with no problem. And hopefully these RTGs last a good long time. So yeah, there we go. Pioneer Jupiter. So funny enough, it looks like we will indeed be hitting the Saturn contract properly, so I'm gonna not need to cheat that one, but I will be doing the Jupiter one when we get there. And it looks like I'm pretty sure that Uranus and Neptune require us to hit Jupiter first, but I don't think they require, no, they generally don't require new vessels to be launched, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'll be able to accept Uranus and Neptune on our way out. Yeah, super exciting. All right, next up we have Telecentaur, which I don't use nearly often enough, probably because it has incredibly low surface level thrust. But we are sending up LunaNet 2. So this is my second attempt at a lunar communication network, after which I can delete the absolute shame that is my LunaNet 1 network. But that's fine. So yeah, this is intended to replace it. We have ignition. And liftoff. All the different towers break away, and we just slowly push up off the pad. Yes, indeed, this is a very capable and relatively efficient rocket. However, it is a little bit sluggish because we are still using the engines that were used in real life on the Atlas Agena launches, not Atlas Centaur launches. So the next variations of these, the 7.2s, I think, those are the ones that have a little bit higher thrust across the board for all three of these engines. I don't know how much difference that's going to make, but I mean, it's got to be some, right? Alright, so we are time warping ahead, and you see that I've gone back to using my vernier engines, which helps to maintain stability on these very low thrust-to-weight ratio launches. One of the things that I'm doing is I set my guidance to a booster pitch rate of 0.3 degrees per second, and that gives it a little bit of loft. So you see, like, we didn't enter into our terminal guidance, which tipped us down a little bit. That's after the first part of the launch, where it's mostly just going up and then going down by a timed amount by degrees, it will then enter into the vacuum guidance where it tips it down, and it in this sentence is MacLeod PVG. And having a slower rate where it does that initial bit gives you a little bit more loft. It kind of pushes you up a little bit higher so that when this engine burns out and it needs to actually decouple these boosters, it is going to be higher in the atmosphere and have less drag on it and will be further away from maximum Q. And that is going to be very helpful for us as far as making sure that this thing doesn't flip out, because at 0.4 I have definitely seen this rocket flip out. So we are just a couple seconds away from dropping our side boosters. There they go, and boop, they booped each other and move on, and you can see we do indeed have stability and control, and we are above 60 kilometers now. So that is how I have to use the Telecentaur with this particular configuration, because like I said, the engines are underpowered for the role they are performing. But once we are at this point, the launch hopefully should be relatively uneventful, because we are just heading up on towards the moon. And somebody else asked, just to clarify something that I do here, is when you are, there goes our fairings. When you are setting up a maneuver node or a launch guidance with primer vector guidance, the RSSRO configuration in MacLeod, so long as you target another planet or body, you can then click launch into the plane of target on the target window. And you can't see that now, so this is not the best time I could have possibly picked to talk about this. However, that's kind of the idea. All right, we have main stage cut off, and we have lit up our Centaur, and we are on our way. So yeah, you can launch into the plane of pretty much anything. You can do it into the plane of other vessels. You can do it into the moon. You can do it into other planets. If you launch into the plane of the moon, that is generally what I do before I head out into the outer solar system, because generally the moon is on the ecliptic, and that makes it a little bit easy to determine where you're supposed to go from there. There are better ways, and there are other tools that you can use to more precisely target your launch inclination, and that is just not something that I do. I just overbuild my vessel instead, which is probably not the best idea that I've ever had in my life, but it's worked for me so far, so why fix what ain't broken? So yeah, we are burning on out towards the moon, and this is the vessel that I basically should have launched when I did when I launched my first LunaNet. So I've actually gone through and I've culled off all of the garbage that it didn't need. I have reduced the size of the transfer stage, and I've actually set it up such that we actually are sending out a stage that is going to break into the orbit of the moon instead of using the entire Centaur to do that. Because before, remember, I launched this on a Titan 3E. Now we've gone all the way down to a Tela Centaur rocket because it's just so much lighter. It's just tons and tons, literal tons lighter. And that makes just such a difference in these rockets. And it's important for me to remember that, even though I have access to the mighty Titan 3E and Paladin rockets that can launch huge payloads out towards the moon and the outer solar system. Those old rockets exist for a reason. They can be built quickly and cheaply and are relatively reliable for that. And so long as you are careful about your payloads, you are going to be able to launch a much better stuff. And yeah, launching an additional 900 or so ComSat payload out to the moon for absolutely no reason is not efficient. Anyways, so yeah, we are just about finished here, and you can see that we have, just doing the math very briefly, we should be exactly on target for what we are trying to do. There we go. We have finished up our orbit, and we are ready to roll. So let's just do that. Just one thing first. Let's just extend our solar panels. These little satellites are attached in a very similar way, and they are mostly the same as their predecessors. This should look very familiar to you if you watched that previous episode, as well as the launch architecture and everything else. But as I bring up our transfer to other target, create node. All right, we are once again trying to do the 10 million meter mark is what I'm looking for. So we're going to hit that. Oh, that's fine. There we go. Yeah, okay, so that is what we are looking for, and let's just execute this node. Activate just one of these antennae to make sure that we have signal the entire way. Yeah, so anyways, this is basically the same thing and basically what we should have launched the very first time that I did this. We have removed the ComSat payload. I have reduced the delta V on each of the satellites, and all of that mass reduction and the corresponding avionics reduction has allowed me to also reduce the this braking stage to not need as much delta V, and then that meant we could use the smaller launch vehicle and all of that. So yeah, that's how it all just kind of rolls downhill from that top node, right? So yeah, we are on our way, and this will hopefully give us good communications around the moon. So yeah, we are just going to get through this burn, and we are going to be entering into a 10 million meter apolloon. And we can see that some of our probes are in that vicinity, and yeah, I'm going to just decommission this network once this is finished, assuming, of course, knock on wood, this actually works properly. All right, wrapping up our burn here. Just fantastic. There we go. And there we go. We'll just use RCS to tweak this a touch, try to get into that exact 10 million meter paraloon. And from there, we are going to look into what it's going to take to get into a resonant orbit. All right, changed my mind only just slightly. I decided to impact our transfer stage into the moon. So that is done there. And now we will separate our little transfer stage, which is going to burn us back into the orbit of the moon. And you can see if we add in a blank stage, it shows us the actual delta V that this transfer stage has. It does not have 3,000 meters per second because it doesn't need 3,000 meters per second. So what we do need is to now push a little bit retrograde. You can see that even just this much is going to mess up our orbit. And I'm just trying to carefully... Actually, you know what? It's better to just time warp a bit so that we are well away from that transfer stage. We don't have to worry about that. It's just point in this direction. And now I'm just using RCS to push our orbit back to where it was just a moment before so that we can hit exactly 10 million meters because, like I said, I am using the Meyer-Webb Resonant Orbit Calculator once again for KSP. And that is going to give us a... the parameters that we need to get into a good resonant orbit that can drop off these probes. So there we go. That's about 10 million meters. Fabulous. So once we get there at the Paraloon, I am going to bring it on down. You can see it doesn't take much delta V at all. We want to get down to 14,962. That may be a number that I've used before. 14,962 is what I'm looking for. And it's gonna, I'm obviously gonna have to fiddle with it to get this just right. So, but that is basically what we're looking for. So this orbit is going to bring us into a place where we will travel an entire orbit, and then the lower satellites will travel 1/3 of the way along their orbit in that same period, or like 1 1/3 or something like that, such that if we drop off each time, then we will have 3 orbits or 3 satellites relatively evenly spaced. So I've just dropped a timer down for that, and off we go. All right, so we have just arrived in the sphere of influence of the moon. You can see that we've messed up our what do you call it? Our Paraloon, just adjusting us towards the sun on the trip over. But now that we are here, it is very easy to get a very relatively precise orbit. So there we go. Just one more day until we get down there. And once again, we do have to point at the sun. And yeah, now we have this tiny nimble spacecraft that is able to very easily whip around and perform these burns with 2 generic thrusters burning Aerozen at NTO without any real issues or any drama about, you know, if the engines are going to ignite or any other issues that we might have. So life is pretty darn good as far as that's concerned. Okay, so there we go. That is what we are looking for. So I am going to now change our Apolloon to 14962 kilometers. There we go. That works just fine. So I just put down a timer there so I don't warp past it. And we are just coming on down towards the moon. Look at that, how cool. All right, with just a couple hours to go, now I can jump out of this and we can execute next node and watch from here. So yeah, this satellite bus that I have put together is an incredibly basic thing. We have a deep space avionics right here with just tech level 1 so that I can crash into the moon when we are all finished if I have enough fuel. We have a big tank, modular tank of Aerozen and NTO, a couple of angular quads for the RCS, and then 2 big thrusters, which gets our thrust-to-weight ratio pretty darn high, but it seemed good to be able to have that so we could make these burns relatively quickly. Could probably have I could certainly have gotten away with just 1. I'm not 100% sure why I decided 2 was the right number, but so it goes. I think it's because I saw this was going to be a 4-minute burn, and I hate those. So yeah, we are now just bringing down our... capturing into lunar orbit. There's Earth, and that means the moon is down here. Pretty darn neat. So yeah, this was going to be a fairly uneventful mission, so I may cut out a whole big chunk of this after we get the initial bit down, and make sure that that is all working correctly and I don't have a tragic a tragic realization at the last moment, just like I did last time. Fingers crossed on that one, I suppose. But yeah, this is built a lot smaller. It's down to just one of these. These are very small. They're basically the same satellite buses, but there is no longer the big cone-shaped container of satellite payload equipment to satisfy any contracts. But otherwise, yeah, these are pretty much the same. Although maybe a little bit more capable. I think I built this before I got the level 2 tech. Yeah, and these are these are static models. These are not the kind that I could have changed the tech level on. So that is not a big deal there. So yeah, we are just about getting into this orbit, and then we will decouple the first of these, make sure that that works properly, and then I'll fast forward to the network being completed. All right, burn is complete. Cancel our spin here. We are at 14,968. We want to be 962, so let's bring it down just a teeny tiny bit. Okay, so that is that. All right, so we are just about ready to go. We are pointed, the mothership is pointed at the sun. We have the correct, or at least roughly correct orbital parameters for now, and we are going to go ahead and decouple the first of the probes. As it goes, kill rotation, please. Actually, just point. There we go. Point so the sun is up, and we are going to rename the vessel to LunarNet new to bus. And then we can jump over to our spinning. There we go. We have control. Extend solar panels, and we are going to rename you LunarNet 2-1. There we go. Sure our RCS is on and working. Staging doesn't seem to have worked, so let's just manually turn them on, I guess. There we go. Kill rotation. There we go. We have 4 working RCS and a working engine. Fabulous. Okay, so 14,962 is what we would have, but now we are actually going to be able to just flip this around and get into the final orbit and have this be the first one in that orbit. So I am just going to fire up this engine, and we are going to burn until we get down to the correct orbital parameters. And so the resonant orbit that I'm looking for is 10 million meters circular. However, the more important thing is the orbital period, which is 31 hours, 41 minutes, 30.8 seconds, which is pretty close to where we are. We just overshot just slightly. So we're looking for 1 day, 7 hours, 41 minutes, and 30.8 seconds. So we are very close now, but we are going to need to flip around to point at the sun before we do anything else. So let's do that, and then I will revisit the orbital period. Okay, 30.84 I think is gonna be good enough, I think. So we are now going to move on to the main satellite bus once again. And actually, no, I'm not going to flip back. Well, I'm going to flip back to the main satellite bus, but this is going to just sit right here, and this is its final destination. So there is no need for us to mess with this spacecraft again. It is LunarNet 2-1, so we will see what happens after I do 2 more of these. All right, a couple minutes before we get to the final... ooh, that is flipping around quite a bit. Before we get to the final deployment, we now have our satellite bus is just flipping out. It still has good signal control, battery, everything that we need for now. But what I'm going to do is I am just going to point us orbital retrograde, fire up the engines, and we are going to switch away so that we can let this thing just smash into the moon. And there we go. We are all situated, so we are going to fire up the engines, and away I go. And that thing should, in theory, just go ahead and deorbit itself. By the time it gets out of physics range, that should be all settled. So let's extend our solar panels on the last one. And we can now take a look at our orbit. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit janky. just based on all of the other stuff that's happening here. So I still have to, just like every other one, enable the RCS. And so as that flips around, we are now able to kind of situate ourselves a bit. So that thing actually does what I told it to do, and if not, then whatever. Okay, so here we are with the third and final LunaNet satellite, relay satellite, with the LunaNet bus is now hurtling towards the moon surface to deorbit, we'll call it. And yeah, we are now just coming in. We are 15 minutes to our paraloon, and we can take a look at what our relay network looks like now. So you can see we are here, roughly, and we have LunaNet 1.2 doesn't matter, but 2.2 is here at the boop boop, and 2.1 is there. So there we go. We have a nice, evenly spaced set of satellites that are going to be in very similar orbital parameters. So what I'm going to do with this last one is we're just going to change our apogee or apoloon to 10,000 at the next, and we can execute that node. And then we will obviously adjust from there. So yeah, very basic set of things. The only thing that I've upgraded, I didn't even need to really upgrade the solar panels, but I did upgrade the dishes. So we have a level 5 antenna and a level 5 1 meter dish here. And we are still using UHF on our Omni communications, and the big S-band dish back towards home. I apparently could have done things a little bit differently. There's a whole bunch of different ways you could have put these together. S-band omnis, for example, are an option, but I think this is fine. Like, this is going to do what we need it to do, and I'm not too stressed about that. So we are just now getting into our final orbit with this, and we have handled the bus and the Centaur. Both have crashed into the moon, so they are taken care of, which is just great. I love it when you can clean the debris as well. Let's go ahead and turn that off, and we need to be at 41, and wow, that actually got really, really close. So let's point us towards the sun, and then we will do our final final adjustment of our orbital parameters to make sure that we will stay in sync with our other LunaNet probes. So we're looking for 41. Okay, and at that point we just turn off our MacLeod smartass to not mess with us, because we should remain relatively stable, and you can see how our orbital period isn't changing with the tiny bits of fluctuations of the RCS going in each direction. Okay, 30.83. That is given that LunaNet 2-1 is at 1 day, 7 hours, 41 minutes, 30.84 seconds. I think this will be just fine and should stay in the same relative orientation for a good long time. And these should last a very, very long time, because we are actually, if I shut down the avionics, you can see that we have a huge amount of electricity compared to what the communications is costing us. So we are in really good shape with these. So there we go. Now we have brand new Luna communications, and I can destroy my shame. All right, and you can see as we are time warping ahead from the tracking station, after making sure that all the other satellites are gone and out of the way, that they will be rotating around the moon, but they will be moving slowly enough that it's almost all three of them are going to have communications at all times. So only one of them is ever going to be occluded by the moon at any given point. And yeah, so they should have constant, solid communications with all of the vessels that we have on the moon, which is just so, so great. Let's go ahead and take a look at, for example, the Solar Back 2, which you can see actually has a good connection to LunaNet 2-1, and then that is communicating back to Earth. So there we go. That is going to be our lunar communications network that we're going to use for all of our future missions. All right, just another day until we get our research and development upgrade, because finally we are building some very large things that are taking a very long time to finish, and so we finally have the time warping we need to actually finish some stuff. And there we go. Research and development has been upgraded. The current limit is 200 science, so we have a long way that we can reach out into the future. And we have a plus 125% research rate, which is really exciting as well. You can see that it's going to take just weeks for us to unlock the vast majority of these old nodes. And it's not so much that I just haven't had enough points put in, it's that my points have been put in too late. We have a long way to go as far as getting these unlocked, and I just need a little bit of time to finally pass is the thing. So we don't need to be putting any more points into our research and development. I think this is a pretty good number, 693. I might bring it up to 700 just because I'm incredibly neurotic and I like even numbers. But yeah, we are finally getting through to some bigger and better nodes of technology that we are able to unlock. We finally have all of our building upgrades finished, including my 1,500-ton launch pad. And to help me fill out that 1,500-ton launch pad, we are just about to finish 1966 orbital rocketry. All right, so this is not as impressive of a node as I was kind of hoping it was, but it does get us an H1 engine config and a Russian engine config. So basically just this HD1 200K, which might be fun. All right, so yeah, the H1 engine that we just got is the engine that flew the first couple of the Saturn 1B launches, which is basically at least one of my Paladins. I think my Paladin 1 is most based on that. But yeah, so it's a nice upgrade that I will probably be able to use on my Paladin launches. Yeah, the only difference that I can really see is that the 842, yeah, is the new version has slightly higher thrust, and that is literally it. No change in specific impulse, cost, mass, anything, except it is a little bit better thrust, which is just lovely. So yeah, that is something that I'll probably upgrade that, but we have a lot more upgrades that are coming soon. All right, so we are checking in with the Martian Moonhopper, and I just want to see what the heck I have left here. So we have finished the science at Midlands, Grooves, Stickney Crater, which is where we are now, and the Lowland. So there are 3 more, and this is Stickney Crater right here. Look at that. Look at that neat thing. It's a big chunk taken right off the side. You can actually see how it like must have gotten scalloped off or just like impacted and then exploded out. But anyways, we have minor craters, major craters, and highlands left to get. So just 3 more biomes before we have actually completed all of the science that we can get on Phobos with this particular lander. And how cool is that? So now I need to figure out where highlands, major craters, and minor craters might be. Well, these look like major and/or minor craters. What direction is that? So we are lifting off, killing rotation so I don't flip around. Point us just straight up. And then I've found that it's actually very difficult to like push in the direction and actually get the orbit line to match, because this thing rotates very, very quickly, surprisingly. But if you use the landing predictions that MacLeod offers, then it actually makes it fairly easy to kind of cast around and see where you would end up. It's sometimes a little bit dicey as far as how high up you actually are, but for the most part, this works out pretty well. But I'm just going to kind of trace this along until I find what I'm looking for, which is highlands or some sort of craters. Oop, there we go. There's some minor craters over this way. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Look at that. Oh, perfect. All right, let's do that. All right, so you can see us leaving Stickney Crater here. flying over the grooves of Phobos, and man, I have really enjoyed bouncing around and exploring Phobos, and it has been just unbelievably lucrative as far as science. We have gathered 2,358 science so far. We have 3 more biomes to go, and there's probably a little bit more that we could do with this craft before we're even finished. I'm not 100% sure what I would do with it, but there's got to be more stuff that we can do in orbit of Mars, and once I finish up all the science that I can get landed here, we are going to pack this up, return to our transfer bus, and see where we can take the show on the road. We're definitely not going to be able to land on Mars, but if we could get back to Deimos, that would be super cool. I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss out on the chance to get the contracts for Phobos. But now that we have done that and are getting as much science as we can, there's no reason not to like kind of just check around and see what we can do. All right, so we are coming down. It's hard to believe that this is a minor crater. Just above the lowlands. Okay, space just above the minor craters, and I am going to plant us down in the center of this. We are rotating, that's fine. And that is going to be nice and flat, so we are going to go right here. Okay, so same process as you've seen me do a couple times before. Just canceling surface velocity here. And now we are going to be pointing straight down. All right. So that is that. We are headed back down to the surface. You've seen me do this a couple times, so unless something terrible happens, I will see you back home. But yeah, this has been just one of the most fun and lucrative missions that I have done in a very long time in any part of my career playing Kerbal Space Program. Uh-oh, okay, so I did manage to screw something up. I'm landing where I don't have signal. So thankfully it's nice and flat, and I am going to be able to, I hope, just cancel out our velocity right before touching down. And just turn off. Okay, up. Point us up. Yep, okay. So I think we're okay. But this is still going to be a little bit dicey as this slides to a stop. All right, we are skidding across the thankfully not too craggy surface of this crater. It did not really occur to me that you know, you'd be in a crater and you'd have a lot less visibility to your satellite, you know. And actually so much so that we have actually slid into a different biome. Whoops. But we are safe, so now let's go ahead and get this moved back once we have signal. Never get sick of seeing Phobos rotating rapidly as it does around and then swinging around Mars. And there we go. Now we have good signal and a little bit of sunlight even. So let's try this one more time. Okay, I'm feeling very lied to by the by MacLeod here. I'm just having a hard time finding an actual minor crater to land in, because this is all grooves according to where we actually are landing. So this is the projected or the predicted landing location, and it's just not giving me, it thinks I'm landing somewhere different than I actually am, and I have to wonder if there's like underneath here, maybe there's some minor crater action or something. All right, we finally found an actual indication of another biome. We are now above Phobos's highlands. So let's cancel all of our other velocity and head straight down. And you see we are actually running fairly low on Delta V, so our next jump is going to have to be back up to our craft. And yeah, so we'll do a refueling run after this one because we still have 2 biomes where we need to find some craters, and that's going to be a little bit more difficult than just kind of casting about randomly, which has worked for me so far, but is clearly reaching the end of its usefulness. All right, so we are just heading to this little flat location here. Getting our trajectory directly underneath us. Oops, this is actually slopey. And yeah, with how much Delta V we are using right now, I'm actually a little bit concerned about being able to make it back to our craft. I probably should have abandoned my course and gone straight down, but I've been very much feeling like this was going to be fine and like, oh, we're not actually using any real Delta V here. But yeah, we are actually running fairly low, so this might be... I might end up losing this mission a little bit early. Hopefully that is not the case, but we will see. The relative velocities are so darn slow, I don't think there's any reason I couldn't just do something like... something really silly like... just put this up into... like, shoot this straight up and have the... our probe meet up with us and match velocity and all that without doing any orbital rendezvous type stuff. Okay, I think we are finally settled on this, so here we go. Time once again to begin all of the science. We have another 30 days and 8 hours before we have to come back, and then we will make sure... Let's see, Martian Moon Hopper, refuel. Let's put that on there in 30 days, 8 hours, and then that way I will know that that is the important thing for us to do. And now it's time to check in on Orb Lab 1. But that is going to have to wait for next time. I am all out of time for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please let me know what you think down in the comments below. I do love to hear from you all. Like and subscribe and all those other things, and I will see you next time.